Welcome the anointed ones. Not everyone who wanders is lost, but you? You were never wandering to begin with. You were coded differently from birth. There's a reason people can't quite figure you out. It's not because you're mysterious for the sake of it, and it's definitely not because you're trying to be difficult. Well, maybe just a little for fun. No, it's because you operate in an unwritten code, one that doesn't exist in their rule book. Here's a fact. Throughout history, every true outlier, visionary, and force of nature has been misunderstood before they were recognized. The chosen ones don't walk paths. They carve them. They disrupt patterns. They confuse the predictable minds of the world. You might notice people trying to analyze you, categorize you, or even worse, fix you, as if you're a puzzle missing a piece. But what if the truth is that they are the incomplete ones, struggling to grasp something far beyond their understanding? Stay with me, because by the time we're done here, you won't just know why they can't figure you out, you'll realize why they never will. Number 1, you carry an ancient frequency, not a trendy energy. You don't fit into trends, movements, or mainstream spiritual ideas because your essence isn't new, it's ancient. You weren't awakened by some viral philosophy or a self-help book that promises enlightenment in 10 steps. You've always known, even before you had the words for it. Your energy carries the weight of something old, something that predates the modern world's shallow understanding of depth. That's why people don't get you. They're looking for something they can label, categorize, and explain, but you don't fit into their systems of thought. You walk into a room and without trying, you shift the energy. Some people feel drawn to you without knowing why, while others feel unsettled, almost defensive, again, without knowing why. It's because you don't just bring presence, you bring an unspoken authority. Not the kind that demands attention, but the kind that commands it. There's a difference. People chase what's popular, what's trending, what seems deep on the surface but lacks substance. Meanwhile, you move with an understanding that can't be found in fleeting ideologies. You don't seek validation from groupthink because your knowing doesn't require external approval. You don't need a movement to tell you who you are. And that's unsettling to those who do. They try to figure you out, dissect your mindset, or even project their own insecurities onto you. But they'll never succeed. Why? Because what you carry isn't something that can be decoded by those who don't speak the language of depth. They think they've seen it all, but they've never encountered someone like you. Someone who doesn't operate on borrowed wisdom but on something deeper, something instinctual, something embedded in your very being. This is why they watch, question, and sometimes even challenge you. Not because they truly want answers, but because you remind them of something they can't explain. And for most people, what they can't explain, they fear. Number 2, your struggles are coded messages, not punishments. Every struggle you faced wasn't random, and it definitely wasn't pointless. It was never about punishment, though at times it might have felt like it. The truth is, your challenges were coded specifically for you, designed not to break you, but to activate something inside you that would have stayed dormant otherwise. That's why your pain never felt ordinary. It carried a weight, a message, a force that wouldn't let you ignore it. Most people go through hardships and come out bitter, resentful, or lost, but you absorb the lessons. You process the pain differently. You don't just survive it, you translate it. Every setback, betrayal, or moment of isolation was meant to sharpen your insight, to heighten your awareness, to strip away the illusions most people comfortably live in. While others complain about their misfortunes, you decode yours. You recognize the patterns. You see the hidden lessons woven into what looks like chaos. This is why you can sense things before they happen, why you see through people effortlessly, why you move differently. You've been trained in a way most people haven't. Life didn't hand you a smooth road because a smooth road would have kept you ordinary. Instead, it threw you into storms, knowing you wouldn't just endure them, but learn from them, knowing they would refine you in a way comfort never could. People who haven't walked your path will never understand how you think. They assume you're just strong or lucky to have made it through. But they don't realize that every wound became a blueprint. Every loss became an instruction manual. They don't see that you were being prepared, not punished. And that's why they will never fully grasp how you navigate the world with an awareness that seems almost unnatural. You were never just going through hard times. You were being given codes. Most people ignore them, complain about them, or run from them. But you rid them. And that's what makes you different. Number 3, you're a signal disruptor in their system. You don't just exist in this world, you interfere with it. Your very presence disrupts the programming most people live under, and you don't even have to try. It's automatic. The way you think, the way you move, the way you question things others accept without hesitation, it all sends ripples through a system designed to keep people obedient, predictable, and easy to control. You weren't made to follow the script. That's why authority figures, institutions, and even certain people in your life have subtly, or sometimes aggressively, tried to silence you, diminish you, or make you doubt yourself, not because you're wrong, but because you're a signal disruptor. You interfere with the frequencies they rely on to keep things running smoothly. When you step into a space, people who are plugged into the system feel it, even if they can't explain why. Some get inspired, others get defensive, but no one remains indifferent. This is why you've never fit neatly into any mold. The world conditions people to accept the version of reality they've been handed. You, on the other hand, question it at its core. You sense the illusions, the manipulation, the artificial nature of so much that others blindly follow. And when you speak, when you act, when you simply exist outside of those invisible boundaries, it makes people uncomfortable. Not because you're doing anything wrong, but because you remind them of everything they've ignored. You're not just someone with different opinions. You disrupt entire thought patterns. You make people second-guess things they were certain about. That's not something small. That's not something society easily tolerates. That's why you've met resistance, why certain doors have closed on you, why people have dismissed you, not because you lack value, but because your value threatens the carefully controlled environment they're used to. And yet, no matter how much they try to suppress or overlook you, they can't erase what you've already disrupted. Because once a signal has been interrupted, it can never be the same again. And that is why you were placed here. Number 4. You don't just see through people, you deconstruct them. People like to think they're hard to read, that their masks are convincing, that their words are enough to hide what's underneath. But with you, none of that works. You don't just sense energy, you disassemble it. You don't stop at surface emotions or social performances. You instinctively pull apart the layers, the walls, the carefully constructed illusions people build around themselves. You don't just see people, you expose them, even when they don't realize it. This is why certain people feel uneasy around you. It's not that you're intimidating in the usual sense, it's that you reflect back everything they've been trying to bury. You hear what they don't say. You notice the subtle hesitations, the flickers of emotion they think they've concealed, the weight of a past they've spent years running from. You decode the contradictions in their words, the micro-expressions they don't even know they're making, the energy shifts they can't control. It's not something you turn on or off, it's just how your mind works. You absorb information others overlook, connecting dots they don't even know exist. You pick up on their real motivations, not the ones they present, but the ones buried beneath their actions. You recognize patterns in their behavior before they're even aware of them. You understand their wounds, their insecurities, their unspoken fears, not because they told you, but because their entire being reveals it to you. And this is where it gets uncomfortable. For them, not for you. Most people spend their lives pretending, carefully curating their image, suppressing the things they don't want to deal with. Then you walk in, and without effort, you see them. And even if you never say a word about it, they feel it. They know you know. Some people are drawn to that kind of clarity, but others, they'll avoid you, dismiss you, or even resent you, because standing next to someone who sees them makes it impossible to keep hiding. Number 5. You are the glitch in the matrix that the system tries to patch. You were never meant to blend in. From the moment you started thinking for yourself, questioning what others blindly accepted, and moving in ways that didn't align with the system's expectations, you became an anomaly. Society is built on patterns, predictable behaviors, controlled thought processes, and structures that keep people in check. But you disrupt those patterns simply by existing. People notice it, even if they can't articulate why. Your mindset doesn't follow the script they were given. Your presence alone challenges the status quo. You don't obey unspoken social rules just because everyone else does. You question traditions, poke holes in contradictions, and move in ways that make others uneasy, not because you're trying to be rebellious, but because compliance has never made sense to you. The moment you recognize a lie, a manipulation, or an illusion, you refuse to play along. And that's a problem for them. Institutions thrive on obedience. Whether it's education, religion, corporate structures, or cultural expectations, they all function best when people follow without questioning. But you break the rhythm. You expose the flaws, the hypocrisy, the outdated rules that serve control rather than truth. And when the system encounters something it can't predict or manipulate, it tries to neutralize it. This is why people have tried to correct you your whole life. Teachers labeled you difficult for asking too many questions. Employers found you disruptive for refusing to accept nonsense rules. Friends or family may have tried to humble you, mold you, or make you more normal. Not because you were wrong, but because you didn't fit. You didn't follow the invisible guidelines they've all been conditioned to obey, and that made you stand out in a way they couldn't ignore. But here's the truth. They can't actually fix you, because you were never broken. The system sees you as an error, a miscalculation, something that needs to be patched or silenced. But you're not an error. You're the proof that the system itself is flawed. You're the reminder that the structure isn't as solid as it pretends to be. That's why no matter how much they try to push you into their mold, it never works. You don't adapt to the system. The system scrambles to adapt to you. They rewrite rules, shift narratives, and try to reframe reality just to account for your presence. And even when they think they've contained you, you find another way to disrupt, question, and redefine everything around you. You are the glitch they can't delete, and deep down, they know it. Number 6. Your existence activates reactions, not just responses. You don't just walk into a room, you shift it. People feel you before they even understand why. You're not the kind of presence that fades into the background. You ignite something in others that they can't ignore. And that's exactly why people either love you intensely or feel an unexplainable discomfort around you. There is no neutral ground with you. It's not about what you say or do. It's about what you represent. You embody something raw, something unfiltered, something that disrupts the carefully controlled image people have of themselves. Some find that magnetic. They are drawn to you because, in your presence, they feel awake. You reflect the power, the truth, the intensity they've buried within themselves. You make them remember something real. But for others, you're a walking disturbance to their carefully crafted reality. You trigger them, and they don't even know why. Maybe it's the way you see through their facades, or the way you refuse to conform to expectations they've spent their entire lives obeying. Maybe it's the way you move without needing approval, the way you think without boundaries, the way you live without fear of shaking things up. People who aren't ready for that level of truth won't just dislike you, they'll feel an almost instinctive need to reject you. Not because you've wronged them, but because your existence exposes something in them they don't want to face. It's an emotional reaction before it's a logical one. They'll search for reasons to discredit you, misunderstand you, even undermine you. Because if they don't, they have to question themselves. This is why you never get lukewarm reactions. It's either deep admiration or silent or loud resistance. You don't blend in. You don't make people feel indifferent. You either awaken something in them or remind them of something they desperately want to forget. Number 7. You speak in codes without trying to. Your words aren't just words, they are layered, encoded, filled with meaning that only certain people can fully grasp. You could say something simple, and to most it sounds like just another statement. But to those who are attuned, those who feel beyond hearing, your words hit differently. They hear the deeper message, the hidden truth, the energy behind what you're saying. You don't have to explain yourself. Those meant to understand simply will. This is why conversations with you are never just small talk. Even in casual discussions, your words carry depth. You could be talking about something mundane, and yet there's something unspoken underneath, something only the right people pick up on. You've probably noticed that some individuals look at you differently after a conversation, as if they're trying to process something they weren't ready to hear. That's because your language isn't for everyone. It naturally filters out those who aren't on the right frequency, and then there are those who misunderstand you completely. They take your words at surface level, missing the essence entirely. Some may even twist what you say, not because you were unclear, but because their minds aren't equipped to decode the truth behind your message. This is why some people accuse you of being cryptic, vague, or too deep for no reason. They want everything spoon-fed, simplified, stripped of meaning, but you don't operate that way. You don't flatten your wisdom for the sake of convenience. The initiated, the ones who carry a similar knowing, don't need explanations. They hear beyond language. They catch the double meanings, the pauses, the unspoken implications. It's almost as if you're communicating on multiple levels at once, speaking directly to the subconscious, while the conscious mind struggles to keep up. This is not something you do intentionally, it's just how you are. You're tuned into something beyond this world, and that reflects in everything you express. You could be giving advice, telling a story, or even making a joke, and still, there's a frequency embedded in your words that acts as a signal. Those who are meant to hear it will. Those who aren't, they'll remain confused. And that's exactly how it's supposed to be. Number 8. People misinterpret your moves because you're playing a game they can't see. From the outside, your decisions don't always make sense. You might move in unexpected ways, cut ties suddenly, or take actions that seem illogical to those who only see things at face value. People assume you're impulsive, reckless, or even lost. What they fail to realize is that you're operating from a completely different vantage point, one they don't have access to. Your intuition is razor sharp. You don't always have a logical explanation for why you do what you do, but you don't need one. You sense shifts before they happen. You pick up on energies long before situations fully unfold. You walk away from things that still look good on the surface but are already crumbling at their core. And because others can't see what you see, they assume you're making mistakes. You're not just living day by day, reacting to what's in front of you. You're thinking 10 steps ahead. You understand timing in a way most people don't. You know when to wait, when to move, when to disappear, when to strike. Your life isn't random, it's strategic. But since your strategy isn't based on conventional logic, people mistake it for chaos. This is why some people doubt you. They watch your choices and assume you don't know what you're doing. They think you've lost direction, that you're inconsistent, that you're moving without purpose. And yet, time and time again, your decisions prove to be right. The situations you left collapse. The opportunities you ignored turn out to be traps. The people you distanced yourself from reveal their true nature. Suddenly, what once seemed like a strange move makes perfect sense. But by then you've already moved on. While others are still processing, you're already ahead, playing at a level they don't even know exists. You don't explain yourself because explanations are wasted on minds that can't comprehend the game you're playing. They'll see in time. They always do. Number 9. You're a spiritual contradiction that confuses the masses. You don't fit into one box. You are both deeply compassionate and fiercely ruthless, intuitive yet logical, grounded but untethered. And that's confusing for people who expect consistency in the way they understand it. Society likes people to be predictable, either this or that, either soft or strong, either detached or connected. But you refuse to be one thing, and that's why people struggle to categorize you. You can be the most understanding person in the world, but the moment someone crosses a line, you have no problem cutting them off completely. You are present and engaged, but at the same time, you are unattached, knowing when to walk away without hesitation. You see things from a logical perspective, yet your intuition often guides your biggest decisions. To the average person, you are a paradox. To those who understand, you are balance. People try to define you, but every time they think they have you figured out, you show them another side. This isn't inconsistency, it's complexity. You are not operating on a simple one-dimensional level. You are multidimensional, and that's unsettling to those who only know how to function within fixed roles. This is why some people are fascinated by you while others are frustrated. They want to pin you down, make you predictable, place you in a category that makes sense to them. But every time they think they have an answer, you shift, adapt, evolve. You don't fit their narratives because you were never meant to. Your existence challenges the idea that people have to be one thing or another. You remind them that true power comes from mastering all aspects of yourself, not just the ones that are socially acceptable. And because of that, you will always be misunderstood by those who crave simplicity. But for those who see beyond the surface, you are a walking reminder that contradictions aren't weaknesses. They are the mark of something beyond ordinary understanding. Number 10. The more they study you, the less they understand. People watch you, analyze you, and try to break you down into something they can grasp. They observe your habits, your patterns, even your silence, believing that if they study you long enough, they will eventually understand what makes you different. But the harder they try, the more they realize you don't operate in a way they can predict. You are not static. You are not fixed in one version of yourself. Every time they think they have you figured out, you evolve, you shift, you become something new. You are in a constant state of transformation, which means anyone trying to define you is always working with outdated information. This is why people who once thought they knew you often find themselves confused later on. They base their understanding of you on a version that no longer exists. They try to put you in a category that no longer applies. They hold on to an old definition while you've already rewritten yourself. It's frustrating for them. They want certainty. They want to be able to say this is who they are. But you don't allow that. You move in ways that defy patterns. You change before people can grasp your current form, and the truth is, most people aren't used to that. They expect consistency, not in evolution, but in limitation. So they keep watching, keep trying, keep thinking they're close to understanding. But they never truly do. Because by the time they think they got you, you're already someone else. Number 11. You don't operate on beliefs. You operate on direct knowing. Most people live their lives based on beliefs. Things they've been taught, ideas passed down, or concepts they've adopted without ever truly questioning them. Their reality is shaped by second-hand knowledge, assumptions, or societal conditioning. But you don't function that way. You don't need to believe, Your understanding doesn't come from books, traditions, or external authorities. It comes from something deeper, something intrinsic. You don't wait for permission to validate what you sense to be true. You don't require someone else's research, approval, or historical reference to confirm what you already feel at your core. This is what makes you fundamentally different from the majority. When others debate, theorize, or intellectualize, you remain unaffected. You're not here to argue or prove anything because your truth isn't up for discussion. It just is. People who rely on external validation struggle to understand this because their confidence is tied to collective agreement. They need consensus. You don't. That's why some may accuse you of arrogance or being too certain, when in reality it's not arrogance, it's clarity. This is also why conventional belief systems don't work for you. You don't blindly subscribe to doctrines, whether religious, political, or philosophical. You extract wisdom where it resonates, but you don't confine yourself to any single ideology. You see through the illusions, the dogma, the rigid frameworks designed to control minds rather than free them. And this level of direct knowing makes some people uncomfortable. They expect hesitation, doubt, or a need for external validation, but you don't provide any. You don't need them to agree with you, and that kind of unshakable certainty makes them uneasy. Some may challenge you, demand explanations, or try to undermine your perception, but deep down they recognize the difference between belief and knowing. And whether they admit it or not, they envy the freedom that comes with being untethered to external approval. Number 12. You attract opposition because you disprove their limits. Your very existence is a contradiction to the limitations people have placed on themselves. The moment you step outside of what they believe is possible, you become a threat. Not because you've done anything to them personally, but because your presence forces them to confront the reality that their so-called limits were never real to begin with. People build their identities around what they think they can and cannot do. They've been told, this is how the world works, and they accept it as truth. When you move beyond those rules, when you refuse to accept those restrictions, they don't see it as inspiration. They see it as an attack. They need their limits to be real, because if they aren't, then what excuse do they have for not pushing beyond them? If you can break barriers they've accepted as unbreakable, then what does that say about the years they've spent staying small? What does that say about all the reasons they've given themselves for why they can't be more? Instead of questioning their own self-imposed limitations, they attack you. They criticize you, doubt you, try to discredit you. Because if they can convince themselves that you're an anomaly, that you're somehow different from them in a way that excuses their own stagnation, then they don't have to take responsibility for their own growth. But what they don't realize is that their opposition only confirms what you already know. You're not bound by the same constraints they are. You don't move according to their rules, and no amount of resistance will change the fact that you've already shattered the illusion they were clinging to. Number 13. You don't seek to fit in, you seek to fulfill. Most people spend their entire lives chasing acceptance. They shape their identities based on what will make them more likable, more relatable, more included. They fear rejection more than they fear mediocrity. Their entire existence revolves around blending in, conforming to expectations and seeking validation from the crowd. You are the opposite. You don't care about fitting in, you care about fulfilling. You're not here to be liked, you're here to complete something. Your purpose isn't about social belonging. It's about delivering what you were sent to bring. That could be a message, a movement, an energy shift. Whatever it is, it's bigger than being accepted. This is why you often feel disconnected from the masses. It's not because you're antisocial or incapable of connection. It's because your path isn't about them. You don't seek approval. You don't adjust yourself to be more digestible. You don't play the role of the agreeable, predictable person just to make others comfortable. That's not why you're here. You operate with a sense of mission, whether you can fully articulate it or not. You know there's something specific you're meant to bring into this world, something only you can do. And that focus makes you different. While others are busy chasing relevance, you are chasing completion. This often leads to misunderstandings. People assume you're distant, detached, or uninterested in social norms. In reality, you simply don't need what they need. You don't require groupthink to feel whole. You don't need validation to know your worth. You are driven by something internal, not by external approval. And that's why you stand out. Because while others are searching for where they fit, you are busy becoming who you were meant to be. Number 14. Your presence is a prophecy, whether they accept it or not. You don't need to announce yourself. Your presence alone speaks volumes. The moment you step into a space, something shifts. Whether people acknowledge it consciously or not, they feel it. They sense something different about you, something that doesn't conform to the usual rhythm of the world around them. Some are drawn to it. They recognize that you carry something rare, an energy, a knowing, a sense of purpose that can't be faked. Others resist it. They sense that you represent something they're not ready to confront. Either way, your presence alone is a prophecy. It foretells something, even if they can't name what it is. You don't have to prove yourself or convince anyone of who you are. Those who can see will see. Those who can't, they will still feel it, even if they pretend not to. Some may admire you, others may oppose you, but none can truly ignore you. Because deep down, even the ones who reject you know you were sent here for a reason. And whether they choose to embrace it or deny it, that truth doesn't change. You are not an accident. You are not just another person blending into the background. You are a disruption, a signal, a reminder of something they don't want to acknowledge but can't escape. Your existence itself is the message. Some will hear it and awaken. Others will fight it and resist. But no matter what they choose, your presence alone has already spoken. Conclusion. The unwritten code of the chosen. There is no map for who you are. No handbook that defines your path. You move through this world governed by something unseen, something that doesn't conform to the limits, beliefs, or expectations of the masses. You operate in an unwritten code, one that cannot be deciphered by those who live within the confines of predictability. You are not here to be understood. You are here to disrupt, to awaken, to be. You are the glitch in the system that cannot be corrected, the signal that cannot be silenced, the anomaly that refuses to be explained away. Every step you take dismantles illusions. Every choice you make sends ripples through realities people thought were unshakable. This is why you stir reactions wherever you go. It's not just what you do, it's who you are. Some will be drawn to you like a revelation they didn't know they were searching for. Others will resist you with everything they have because your presence alone exposes the fragility of their illusions. Either way, neutrality is rarely an option when it comes to you. You activate something in people whether they want to face it or not. You don't operate from belief. You operate from knowing. You don't seek approval. You seek fulfillment. You don't exist to fit in. You exist to complete what you were sent here to do. And no amount of opposition, misunderstanding, or resistance can alter that. Let them study you, misunderstand you, fear you, even fight you. It won't change the inevitable. You're not meant to be figured out. You're meant to be experienced. And those who are meant to understand, they always will. If this message resonated with you, if you felt it in your core, then you already know you're not here by accident. You're part of something bigger, something deeper. And this is just the beginning. So don't just watch, engage. Like this video to let the algorithm know that content like this needs to be seen. Comment below and share your thoughts, because trust me, the ones who move like you need to hear what you have to say. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you never miss what's coming next. And most importantly, share this with someone who needs it, someone who's always felt different, someone who's been questioning their place in the world, someone who's searching for confirmation that they're not crazy. They're just operating on a different frequency. This isn't just a video, it's a message. And messages like this don't just fade away. They spread. Let's make sure this one reaches those who need it most.